There is a specific kind of physical gravity created when 80,000 people occupy the exact same concrete bowl. During the 2026 FIFA World Cup, that localized density compounded across an entire continent to break the all-time tournament attendance record. This is the scoreboard announcement that made it official: 3,605,357 spectators. That figure eclipses the previous benchmark set back when the United States last hosted the tournament in 1994. The 1994 games pulled in 3,587,538 fans, a ceiling that remained untouched for 32 years. The immediate media narrative frames this as a peak in global soccer popularity, an organic explosion of sports fever. But a closer look at the logistics tells a different story. Surpassing the 1994 total was an engineered mathematical certainty. The outcome was guaranteed by manipulating two specific variables: structural volume and capacity density. When we break down the tournament as an economic system, it becomes clear exactly how FIFA locked in this milestone before a single ticket went on sale. We start with the volume variable. In event logistics, this is the absolute maximum number of tickets that can physically exist, dictated entirely by the total inventory of matches. The 1994 attendance record was built on a relatively lean foundation. That entire tournament consisted of a maximum inventory of just 52 matches. This cumulative line graph plots the historical growth of that 1994 attendance. The trajectory climbs steadily, eventually capping out right here at 3.58 million. The 2026 organizers altered the underlying architecture of the event. They expanded the field to 48 teams and spread the footprint across 16 stadiums in the US, Canada, and Mexico. That expansion required a massive increase in games. The schedule swelled to 104 matches, exactly double the 1994 structure. When we plot the new trajectory on the same scale, the sheer vertical climb is obvious. The 2026 curve crosses the 1994 peak incredibly early, right at game 60. At the moment the record was shattered, there were still 44 games left completely unplayed. And that remaining block of inventory includes the knockout stages and the final, matches that historically draw the largest crowds. By artificially inflating the supply to 104 events, passing the aggregate record was no longer a question of popularity. It was simply a matter of multiplication. Multiplying matches only works in practice if you can actually fill the seats. This brings us to the density variable, the rate at which organizers can physically utilize available capacity and process daily logistical throughput. Through the initial 44 matches, stadiums operated at an astonishing 99.6% capacity. In absolute numbers, that translates to an average of 64,796 fans packing the stands for every single kickoff. To really test the limits of that density, we have to look at single-day aggregate loads across multiple venues. This bar chart measures daily attendance loads. For decades, the highest stress test on record was June 28, 1994, when 277,070 fans attended games on the same day. On June 16, 2026, the expanded format pushed 281,223 people through the gates across 4 simultaneous group stage matches. 8 days later, the system processed an even larger crowd, pushing the daily mark up to 288,007. Pushing past these daily limits demonstrates that the organizers effectively maximized the physical pressure at every single site, validating the demand for the expanded schedule. Typically, an event reaches near-perfect utilization by lowering the barriers to entry for consumers. Yet the 2026 tournament achieved these numbers against severe market and geopolitical friction. The primary obstacle was cost. As reported here, the average lowest resale price for a match stood at $798. Aggressive travel restrictions also severely complicated logistics for international fans. What we are observing here is a textbook case of demand inelasticity. This pressure gauge represents capacity. Inelasticity occurs when consumers absorb massive price hikes and logistical headaches, but their participation rate doesn't drop. The dial stays pinned to the top, completely ignoring the weight of the barriers. Sports economists attribute this to a specific American market dynamic, a fierce appetite to be present for major cultural moments, largely regardless of the entry fee. The attendance model didn't rely on casual ticket buyers. It exploited a highly motivated, completely price-insensitive demographic. The barriers filter out the general public, but the sheer volume of wealthy buyers easily fills the void. This inelastic demand is the real engine behind the milestone. The audience's willingness to absorb exorbitant costs is what allowed the bloated match schedule to remain financially viable. So, we have the complete operational formula: structural volume multiplied by inelastic density. Applying that formula to our cumulative line graph reveals exactly where this tournament is heading. Pushing the data through the final 44 highest demand knockout matches, the trajectory accelerates. It is mathematically positioned to nearly double the historic 3.58 million standard. For the organizers, that sheer volume of human traffic is directly converted into the primary corporate objective: revenue generation. This document outlines FIFA's internal projections. Ticket sales and hospitality alone will generate more than $3 billion. The 2026 World Cup proved the viability of a vastly expanded, highly lucrative logistical blueprint. By artificially increasing supply and exploiting inelastic demand, organizers successfully rewrote the economics of the global mega event.